Coming up on this week's show, EA and Koei Tecmo join forces to bring us a competitor to Monster Hunter. The Dead Space Remake is looking extra moist and icky. Google Stadia is dead, and the long in development Skull and Bones is delayed again. Hello friends, and welcome to the Weekend Catch-Up Club podcast, the coffee morning show brought to you every week where friends hang out and chat about some of the latest stories going on in the industry. You can follow the show on all your favourite podcasting platforms or watch the video version over on youtube.com/gamertagged. This is episode 80, and joining me as always is the man with the personality of a can of orange tango, the king of the tangent. It's James McClellan.
Morning.
Good morning to you, sir. And joining us in the co-host hot seat is none other than the voice from beyond, the ethereal, the spooky, the immensely talented Sarah Lynham.
Woohoo! I love that intro. That's amazing.
Is that a good intro for you? Are you happy with it? I can make edits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all you need to do is add something else each time, so it just gets obscenely long. And you just have to list off all the cool shit that I do.
So it's going to be like introducing you as Khaleesi, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, the ethereal, the spooky, that kind of thing. It's just going to go on and on.
That's what I need.
Like an SNL sketch. I think it did that. Oh, guys, we have another absolute banger of a show. So much news. We have a new game which got announced and it's been dropping some gameplay trailers called Wild Hearts. We're going to get stuck into that. We have lots and lots of Dead Space Remake news. For better or worse, there's a lot of positive stuff coming out over the past week, but a lot of kind of negative stuff has been raising its head as well, so we'll maybe kind of dip into that. A potential new ongoing little section called Subscribed to Gaming, where we talk about games that we would normally never necessarily look at, but because they are free or bundled in with subscription services such as the PlayStation Now Extra Premium, whatever the hell they call that, a very convoluted tier program, or Game Pass, things like that. We'll maybe talk a little bit about those. We have some news about Google Stadia, and we have that pirate game that has been in development for seeming like forever, Skull and Bones. So I'm going to jump in at the reverse angle, I guess. Reverse timeline? I don't know. Starting at the back of my list, that's what I'm trying to say. The Skull and Bones, I don't really have much to say about this, so maybe just kind of batter this one out of the way, first of all. I'm pretty sure Jamie could probably talk for 30 minutes about this, but you know what he's like with
I can talk for 30 minutes about anything, but...
You could. You absolutely could. So this is the Ubisoft pirate game, which got unveiled I want to say like 5 years ago, or it feels like it was many years ago. They first showed it off, and then it kind of went silent for ages. And then they keep coming back with little kind of trailers, little dropping hints here and there at different event shows. And then it keeps getting delayed. And apparently this is like the 5th time it's now been delayed. And it's now coming out in like March of 2023. And I don't know how you both felt about this game, but when I first saw it, I thought, oh, cool. They're doing a dedicated pirate game, doing all the best stuff from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is probably my second favorite Assassin's Creed game. And they're just doing all the good stuff about a pirate's life am I. And then it just seems to have maybe like lost its way a bit. And there was gameplay things coming out about it where you don't actually have a character that you can control. You're really just piloting the ship. Is piloting the correct term? Do you pilot a ship? I'm not too sure. Sail a ship. You're in charge of obviously commanding the ship, but you don't actually like control a third person character that you customize or things like that. And then much later, several years later, they showed your captain like walking around a port or haven or something like that. And so apparently you do get off the ship and you do kind of go around your merchants and stuff, but I think that's the scope of what you do in the third person. It's all mostly around sailing the high seas and plundering and things like that. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm up for this or not. I don't really know what to make of it. So I'm going to kick it over to Sarah first of all, because she's got like the pirate look about her today. And,
It's the eyeliner, right?
it's the eyeliner. Exactly. It's the Jack Sparrow eyeliner. A lot of listeners are missing out today.
Head on over to YouTube.
Yeah. What do you think about this game?
To be honest, I hadn't heard about it when it first got announced, so I have only heard about it in the last year or so. And I love Sea of Thieves, so I was like, cool, I love that there's more pirate games coming out. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused about what exactly it is, or is it like a combination of a bunch of different games? But that article that you sent through to us, Ross, was saying something about how the game devs might be burnt out. It sounds like they're maybe adding too much into the game, which I mean is great for players when we eventually get to play it. But yeah, it seems troubling if it's being really taxing on the devs. But in saying that, I really appreciate pushing back a release date so that we don't get like an unfinished version of the game. And there was something about an open beta being available at some point too. So yeah, I guess maybe they're slightly closer to actually fulfilling the plan of releasing it. But it does seem a bit, yeah, I'm still confused about, is it more like Sea of Thieves? Is it more like an Assassin's Creed game? Shrug. Is it both? I don't know. But yeah, I'm curious. Maybe I'm going to spy on their socials for when that open beta comes out. Check that out.
Yeah, I remember the announcement trailer for Skull and Bones when it dropped during, I want to say E3, but I was watching it live back in the day and was immediately excited because I've played a lot of Sea of Thieves and was that this will be great. This is like Sea of Thieves but with better graphics, although I argue the Sea of Thieves art style is timeless. It's always going to look as good as it looks, which is great. So, Sea of Thieves, but like a high def looking with perhaps a bit more to it, a little bit more. I was kind of hoping for pirate combat based around the Assassin's Creed style, that sort of thing. So when that was what we thought we were getting, very excited. But as it's sort of gone on, there's been a dearth of news. And then what has popped up has not always seemed to match what it possibly partly my own fault for taking a look at a teaser trailer and going, I know what this game's going to be and I love it already, and then realising it's not quite what I expected. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to check it out, but I don't really know what they're doing with it. And part of me wonders if this is one that is going to end up either shelved or eventually releasing and not quite hitting the mark just for the length of time it's taken to sort of get it out there. And as Sarah said, if it's putting a lot of pressure on the dev team at the minute, I would almost rather a game gets shelved, I think, rather than the dev team get pushed to breaking point and release something they're not happy with, and then you end up with a bad taste in everyone's mouths. So fingers crossed. We can but hope.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like great. It's great. It's getting like delayed if it's for the well-being of the staff and things like that, and they're not having to crunch as much. But is it an indicator that the game is in trouble and they don't really know how to pardon the pun, but bring it into port and make it nice. Landfall? I know. So I'm hoping for the best, but I don't know. I don't know because the recent trailer looked. I was seeing a lot of kind of negative feedback on it, and I was thinking, you know what? It doesn't look bad. It actually looks quite good fun. But all the kind of feedback that I was kind of seeing was around like, this just looks really poor. It just looks really monotonous. And sure, that is an issue and a concern if all you're doing is sailing the ship and you're going and taking on other galleons and that's kind of all you're doing as such against the AI. Because I'm not sure if there's other players in the game.
There is. Yeah, and there's PvP.
There is PvP. Yeah. So is it just going to be griefers like that, or is there like really interesting questline stuff to do? But is that enough to break the monotony of I'm only on this ship and I can only leave the ship if I'm going to port? And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of aloof about it a little bit. I'm like, okay, if it comes out great, I'm probably not that excited to pick it up, but I'm like you guys, I'm hoping for the best, especially for the knowing Ubisoft, like probably the hundreds of developers that are working night and day to try and bring this in and make it the best kind of pirate experience possible. But like Sarah, you raised a great point there of, Sea of Thieves is out, and that is like the quintessential, the perfect pirate life experience, especially because it's rare that we're doing it, and they've got that British humor in their bones. And that carries through so well with all of their writing and their output, and especially with the recent collaborations that they've done with like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Jack Sparrow quest lines and everything. It's like, I'm all for new pirate games, but in this space now, Sea of Thieves is really like the kind of the peak of what you can do. This is my pirate. This is your pirate. We can get together on our little schooners or our bigger battleships, and we can turn on each other, or we can work together, or we could do the questline stuff. We can go exploring. I really hope Skull and Bones can rival that. And yeah, anyway, that's kind of all I have to say. Excuse me, I was to take a sip of coffee. Dead air. Oh my God, not dead air. Exactly. Jamie, Phil. I'm kidding. So the main topic, I guess, that I'd love to kind of delve into is the game that came out. It feels like it came out of nowhere, called Wild Hearts by Koei Tecmo, and it is a partnership with EA, Electronic Arts Originals. We talked a little bit on last week's show about EA and with how they're getting back into the kind of like the single player game space with that Iron Man game with Motive Studios and Marvel Games. And now, of course, they're back again in the headlines. Slightly different, what's the word? Different narrative with a co-op game, but also a single player game with Wild Hearts. And this is from the makers of the Dynasty Warriors series. So it's going to be probably batshit crazy, no doubt. But also, it looks like it is going for the jugular of the Monster Hunter games. Like, this is very much Monster Hunter. And, why not, right? The Monster Hunter series is a juggernaut of a title. It's kind of untouched in terms of competition, really. There was a free-to-play game called Dauntless, which came out a while ago. I believe it's going fairly steadily, but let's be honest, nothing touches Capcom and Monster Hunter. And this looks like a proper, full-blooded, AAA, big budget, crazy Monster Hunter rival. So, guys, I'm going to pass the floor over to Jamie, first of all.
Yeah, the first I had heard of it is when you included it in the show notes. It had completely slipped me by. And I thought, okay, I'll take a wee look at this. And then I fired up the trailer that you sent, and I was like, oh, there's a new Monster Hunter game. Because it not only, it's not only in the genre, it looks as though it feels, which is a strange sentence construction, but yeah, everything about it looks very Monster Hunter, which is not a bad thing, because, Monster Hunter is fantastic. I came into the series with World. I had never played it before. I'd seen it played and had friends who'd played it, but never actually tried it. Came in with World and just fell in love, and we played it for hours. And getting a group of friends together to go after this huge beastie that's terrorizing the landscape, and you're just, it's a brilliant experience. So, but everything, it looks really good. Like, I'm quite excited to try it. And being from the guys behind Dynasty Warriors, like, they've got previous for making something insane anyway. So when you take that and throw in, behemoths and kaijus, I'm down. I'll give that a wee go. Very impressed.
That's the thing. It's like if you weren't aware, you would think that this is Monster Hunter World 2, which is coming. Apparently, is rumored to be getting announced next year, probably around E3 time. But like, it's like, is this like Monster Hunter World 2 by another name? And you I think are the same as me, Jamie, where World was definitely my first experience of this franchise. I was aware of it. I never really checked them out on my 3DS, and I know they were hugely popular on the 3DS. The past almost 10 years. Like 2011 is when they were always on the 3DS. Before that, there were ones on the Wii and the PSP and the PS2, but kind of exclusively over the past decade, they were just 3DS games. And then this, for like myself and you, and obviously millions of others, this was their first experience delving into Monster Hunter. And I was looking at the sales figures over the franchise on one of the web pages on fandom.com, and by far and away, World was overwhelmingly the most successful Monster Hunter game. It's sitting at like 27 million if you include the Iceborne DLC as well, which sold like an additional 9 million. It was like an 18 million and 9 million split or thereabouts, which is crazy and fantastic, obviously. So no wonder other developers are saying, holy shit, we need to get in on this. Let's do a gorgeous mega budget Monster Hunter game and try and tap into those millions of sales. Sarah, what's your history with the franchise?
I have basically zero history with it, considering it is such a kind of legendary level franchise. So my other half has played literally every single iteration of it and is obsessed with this franchise and has always told me that I should play it. And because I'm a fan of the Soulsborne games, apparently it's very similar to the boss fights. And I'm like, well, I love the boss fights, so why have I not played this yet? I'm a fool. But it looks incredible. I think, and just looking at the monster design at this point is amazing. It's this kind of, monsters with nature, and that the gameplay one that they dropped with this like pig tree thing looked insane. I was like, yes, I want to take that thing down. Absolutely, I do. It'll just be interesting for people who do know the franchise to see whether it can differentiate in ways that make it interesting and don't. I mean, obviously they want it to be a competitor, but I think if they can make it stand out from Monster Hunter, then they'll have loads of money. Maybe more than Monster Hunter. Who knows, though? I doubt it because it's such an established name, isn't it?
I know. The thing that I'm thinking about for this new game is, can it capture the feel of Monster Hunter? Because Monster Hunter has a very unique feel to it. It just works. There's all of those complex systems just kind of work together really, really well. Whether it's Rise on the Switch, which is the recent one, or World on the home consoles. I personally feel that World was the peak of the franchise, and Rise is still excellent, but it's lost something from World. And for me, that is because World was all about you actually having to research and track the monsters. And that was a huge part of it, like the ecosystem, the biodiversity of these biomes. You had to really pay attention to the environment and look for the tracks, look for like scratch marks, or if there's like some kind of pus thing on the ground, you have to kind of analyze that. And then your scout flies would give you like a ranking build up to say, we can identify this creature, let's navigate there. And Rise seemed to kind of strip all of that out and just immediately take you straight to the boss to get into the fight, which is fine, especially for a Switch handheld model. But I really missed that kind of, let me track the creature and then get into the fight with it. So I'm hoping that Wild Hearts really latches on to the things that really make Monster Hunter so addictive and great, and they can bring their own things to it. I noticed in the gameplay trailers recently that they have introduced this kind of building mechanic, which is
looks
really interesting. So there's like, it's like Fortnite mixed with Monster Hunter, which what could possibly go wrong with that mashup? So there's like traversal things that you can build. There's like a propeller thing that will let you glide. There's a zip line thing, but then you can also build like a barricade wall. And then the big warthog from the trailer was like rampaging in, and it slammed on this wall that you just created, and it knocked itself out. So that in itself is, I think, enough of an interesting hook to add something to the genre and stand apart from maybe Monster Hunter, which I'm really excited for it and to see what they can do and bring to it. But I hope it just nails, I'm a hunter, I need to hunt, rather than there's the icon, there's your creature, go get it, and that be the gameplay loop.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like you said, the building mechanic and that sort of thing should hopefully introduce enough of a different element to make it feel not just a clone, because that was the problem I had. I tried out Dauntless for a bit, I had a couple of friends who wanted to get into Monster Hunter but hadn't picked it up, and they ended up, because Dauntless was free to play, they grabbed it, so we ended up jumping in that for a while. And there's nothing wrong with it. It plays nicely, and it was good fun, and I was quite enjoying it, but it did just feel like Monster Hunter, but not quite as polished, which a lot of these games, you always end up with, whenever there's a big title, it's like the Asylum movies. You always end up with that game that gets released that's almost the game everyone wants to play, but not quite. And that's kind of what Dauntless was doing, but it was decent and it was fun. Like, for anyone who wants to get into that sort of gameplay but doesn't want to drop any money on it, Dauntless is a a viable option. But yeah, this looks like it's taking the notion of Monster Hunter, but it hopefully, I mean, you got good stock behind it with Koei Tecmo, and so I think if they could get that feel right and then just add enough little bits and pieces to it, I think they could be onto a winner, because that is a fantastically fun style of game. So yeah, very excited.
Yeah, I hope that the biomes have that kind of dense feel to it. Like the environments are densely packed, just what Monster Hunter World was, because the trailer showed a lot of kind of quite open and expansive environments, almost like arenas. So I'm hoping that the environments feel more organic and like an actual like tropical space or a desert space or whatever they go for, because that's what Monster Hunter World was really good at, as well as those spaces that it feels like a natural habitat of these creatures, not just a crafted gameplay arena and then they dump the monster in there and then you go at it. So that cohesion across the environments and the systems, I think, could be really, really potent offering to this genre.
Anyone else really want to go and play some Monster Hunter now?
Yes,
it's
I do.
4-player as well. That's the thing. Okay, so next topic is the Dead Space Remake. And originally they had dropped a couple of screenshots which looked phenomenal and amazing. And then they did a big gameplay trailer reveal. And I just think this is looking so fantastic. I don't know what you think about the Dead Space franchise as a whole and the fact that it's coming back now, but I'd love to obviously hear your thoughts on it.
So I've never played Dead Space, but I've been told by a lot of people that I should, because I like spooky things and I like spooky games. I've also been told that it is absolutely terrifying. So that's fun, and I'm really keen to play it. And I think I'll just wait for the remake. And we'll probably end up getting it on PC rather than console, for reasons that I'm sure we'll speak about very soon. But yeah, it looks very cool. Very, very, very creepy. Very, yeah, it's like terrifying and dark, and yeah, everything that I want.
Yeah, the Ishimura as a space station kind of destination is so cool, and it came out not immediately, but later. It was like after Resident Evil 4 had completely changed the kind of the genre of survival horror, and it improved the mechanics in a massive way. If you remember, like Leon Kennedy in RE4 he could never walk and aim at the same time, or walk and shoot at the same time. You're kind of fixed at the spot as if he'd like planted an anchor. Whereas when Dead Space says, no, this is how we're going to be doing survival horror. Isaac can aim, he can move around, he can stomp, and he can punch and things like that. And then they added the necromorphs. The necromorphs, I think that's what they're called anyway, the necromorphs. In order to kill them, you don't, like, instinctively, Jamie, I think you're probably the same as me, Resident Evil fans, you aim for the head.
Go for the head.
You put them down by aiming for the head. And the necromorphs, that just didn't work. So the game developer said, oh, you think you know how to do survival horror games? No, you got to chop off their limbs, and that's how you kill them. And that was such a shift to the gameplay design. And of course, things like there's like hardly, in fact, I don't think there's any kind of HUD at all whatsoever. They integrated Isaac's health bar onto his spacesuit. There's things like that. They're like stripping away the HUD. It made it so much more immersive. And I'm a huge Dead Space fan, and I whilst I'm really, really looking forward to this, there is other news that dropped about the price point of this remake, which we'll also get into. But Jamie, are you a massive fan of Dead Space and horror games in general?
Huge fan of horror games. Dead Space, I only really played the first one. And that not for that long. I can't remember what else came out about a month into Dead Space, but it was something that drew my attention, and I ended up never going back, which was terrible of me. So I need to, at some point, play through them all. But like you said, the systems that they did introduce, the health bar being on the suit and the loss of HUD and that sort of thing really does like pull you in. It's fantastically creepy, brilliantly atmospheric. And the fact that you don't go for the head, I remember the first time I fired a shot like, yeah, blam, gotcha. It's still moving. Why the fuck is it still moving? And it's like that. It's brilliant. Like that's a nice touch. So it's a great series, like fantastic franchise. And what they're doing with the remake that I'm excited by is the fact that they're not just doing the same game again but with polished graphics. They're actually remaking it from the ground up. They're like, right, we are gonna take that base story, take that base idea that we had, but hey, we've got new things we can add in. And they said that there's some excuse me, some secondary characters that were sort of not overly featured. Like, we're going to give them a bit more of a storyline, and we're going to do a little bit more with this. And just that, I think, is how a remake should be made. Like, that's a remake as opposed to just giving it a bit of a spit shine and throwing it back out there for 60 quid again. So, although,
that was the thing about the first game, is all this stuff is happening to the character of Isaac, but Isaac doesn't have a voice at all in the first game. They added it in the second game and the third game, where he's much more emotive and he feels like an actual character. Whereas in this, he's just like this tank-like character, but that never reacts to what's going on around him. And I'm so happy that they brought the original actor back from 2 and 3 and said, okay, we're going to actually have him voice acted. So that way, all of this like horrifying stuff which is going to be happening to him, he can say, holy shit, what is that? You know, whatever. That's the level of my voice acting. I know Sarah's impressed already. She's going to like recommend me, but I'm really hoping that kind of level of improvements to the game carries forward. I think the core gameplay was still pretty solid. It didn't really need a lot. Maybe a little bit of refinement and tightening, but it's still so playable. But again, it's 15 years old and it's never had a remaster of anything. So I think, Jamie, what you were saying is correct. Like, this is not just a port and an upscale. They're fully rebuilding everything about this game. So, and this is where the conversation gets into. This game is going to be £70, or $70, depending on your region, your market. Is that? We'll get back into this conversation. Should it be that expensive, and should games, I guess, going forward be that expensive? Because Ubisoft also announced that going forward, all of their big properties, they're going to be going up to £70. And this remake, I was coming at it from the angle where, okay, Demon's Souls on the PlayStation 5 was fully remade. It was only ever playable and actually really difficult to get on the PlayStation 3. And it's dated. It is really, really old. So when Bluepoint Games fully from the ground up rebuilt that, launches at £70, nobody bats an eye, because you see, okay, yeah, it's a different game. Although at its core it's the same game, but it looks totally different because it's been vastly improved. You can spot the lineage and the DNA and the bones, but everything is different. And I am thinking that this Dead Space remake is like, it should be like that. It should be regarded like that. This is not just a port or an upscale or some next gen improvements that we're then selling to you for the £70. This is a full, built from the ground up new game. So I don't really have a massive problem with the £70 is expensive for anybody. It is expensive, but I don't have a problem. I'm not calling it out for saying this shouldn't be that because it's a remake. I think it's adding enough to the package that it is going to be worthwhile. It's we can't obviously say that about The Last of Us Part 1, which we talked about a couple of weeks back. despite my even buying that game. I know I'm part of the problem, but I think this game is going to be worth it. The sticking point, and I'll shut up in a second and pass it over to you guys, is that to buy the game new on Steam, it's only $50. And you can actually find it lower than that. A friend of mine actually found it on another key website for £35. But the console version is $70, which is a huge discrepancy. And then if you factor in the other game that I'm most looking forward to this year, even more so than God of War Ragnarok, and that is the Callisto Protocol from the original developers of Dead Space. This is their new one. That looks very much a full-blown next-generation game. Like, unreal graphics. No pun intended. I don't even know if it's on the Unreal Engine. But that looks ridiculously good. And that's launching new at under £50. I think it's like £47. So then it's hard to justify 70 for the Dead Space remake, which is because all of this other stuff is in the airspace around Dead Space. Whereas normally I think, okay, £70 for a ground-up remake is probably okay. But then when you factor in all the other stuff. So, Jamie, thoughts on price points? Because you are a man with opinions and lots of interesting tangents to talk about and to say. Let's hear it.
I have previous when it comes to ranting at companies for price points, so I will choose my words carefully. But I think gaming has become a more and more expensive way to spend your time, and it kind of sucks. And I don't like the disparity between PC and console pricing because I don't think it's necessary. I think Sarah's right. I believe it's something to do with a console cut for the releasing on our platform, as far as I'm aware. But I think that's a little more historical, and it's now charged more because they can get away with it. I think there's a lot of that happens in the industry, unfortunately. It's like, well, we've always charged around this, and then we can push it up, and we can, let's see if we can squeeze another $5 out of them. Let's see if we can squeeze another. Because companies, ultimately speaking, any company, what they want to do is take as much of your money as possible. Like that's entirely their remit, at least when it comes to the financial side of it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I get very frustrated with the pricing of gaming generally. That being said, I'm fine with them charging full price for the remake because it is a full remake. There's a lot of they're basically. The way I look at it with stuff like this is, if 1982, you go to the cinema, you watch Poltergeist, you pay a full price ticket. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, when they remade it, you go and you pay it. You know roughly what the story is. Wee girl, haunted, spooky. Eventually they win. But it's a completely new film. So it's kind of the same thing with this. It's a new game. They've got the same storyline, sure. Mm-hmm. But they're even adding to that. Same sort of mechanics, but it's going to be polished. The graphics are going to be it's a new game. So I'm fine with that being full price. I just don't know that the full price should be as much as it is these days. I could quite literally ramble for hours about how expensive it is to be a gamer and how much I think it needs to be a case of, at some point, basically, we as a community have to vote with our wallets. We have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that game because it's too much money. You're overcharging for what it is.
Yeah.
But we'll never do it because shiny new game comes out. We all go, just take it all.
Yeah.
I know. And there's the other factor as well. It comes in, releases in January, I think, 27th, which is notoriously the longest month. And it's immediately after Christmas when everybody is already skint, like completely skint. So it seems to be landing at like the worst possible time at the worst possible price point. And I think a lot of people are just going to be waiting for a deep sale on it. And I can't really blame them. I think, again, it's difficult because as a huge Dead Space fan, I was really looking forward to picking this up. But then it's like £70 is like, ouch. And then the previous month, Callisto Protocol is coming out for less than 50, so more than £20 cheaper. I'll probably be wanting that as my quote-unquote Dead Space fix because it's the original developers and it's seeming to evolve that Dead Space experience into something new. I think it's going to struggle. I think a lot of people are not going to pick it up at launch and just wait for a couple of months down the line and wait for that kind of half-price sale, and then it's like an easier proposition, which is unfortunate because, as you said, Jamie, it is built from the ground up to be like a new game for a new generation, but it's things are getting so expensive, and it's hard to justify. We're now, if we weren't already, picking and choosing which games we want to buy day one, and as going back to when probably we were kids and with our N64s, expensive game cartridges, to say, okay, you're only going to be getting 2 games a year, and you got to really pick and choose which ones they are, because it has to last you until the next one comes around, when you've either saved enough, or if you're lucky enough for it to be like a birthday present or a Christmas present, but like that's it. And I don't want to sound down on it at all, because I think it'll be a fantastic game, but it's coming back down to price is a horrible message when that's all it comes down to. Not about the quality of the game, not about how much effort went into it and the experience that you're getting and whether or not it's actually worth getting or picking up. All of those are a bona fide yes, absolutely. But then it comes down to a message of pricing, and that is the barrier. We need Xbox to step in and say this is going to be a Game Pass Day 1 game, and then we'll all be happy. Not sponsored. Yeah. Not sponsored.
I mean,
not yet.
Let's be fair. It'll come to Games Pass because eventually we'll all be released on Games Pass. Like, you'll be able to download your friends. They've stealth released about 20 games this week on Game Pass, so it'll probably end up there. But I think it would be nice if. I think what we need, right? We need like Xbox, for example, could be Sony, won't be Sony. Little shade there, but we need Xbox to sort of step in and say, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna waive the majority of our cut for games releasing on our platform. We're gonna, we'll take a nominal amount for whatever it costs for us to, host your digital, whatever, blah blah blah. We'll cover ourselves, but we're not gonna. We're gonna turn around and say, hey, we're not looking to make so much profit on this, because guess what? They're making all the money under the sun. I mean, they have so much money that Phil Spencer walked into the office and said, hey, can I have half of all our money so I could go buy Blizzard? And they just went, meh. Crack on, essentially. So when you've got that kind of cash to spread around, they could do something amazing for the community and say, hey, guess what? We're going to take a little less profit here so that you as gamers can get more games. And I think it would benefit them in the long run, because the cheaper the games are, the more you're going to sell, especially as we, without wishing to dive into how dire things are. The economy's not in a great way, would be one way to put it. Mm-hmm. So the more you can make it affordable for gamers, the more they're going to hang in there and, keep coming back for more games, because it makes sense to me. But then I'm not Phil Spencer. So.
You're not? You're not?
No.
This whole time.
Unless reveal the
Mission Impossible style, you've got the face mask on. I love it.
Yeah, it was me all along.
So that's actually you've actually managed to bring it around to a really good segue, talking about Game Pass and subscription services, Jamie, because our new segment, Subscribed to Gaming, is about games we've maybe had a chance to dabble in, play in, that we normally wouldn't even look at. I've got a couple, but I don't want to hog the microphone like I normally do. Sarah, have you had an opportunity to look at things like this, or is it just going to be me and Jamie talking nonsense again?
I mean, I have a couple of things to say. Nothing specific in terms of like game choices, but like I think one of the best things about the whole like subscribing to gaming idea is that if you're someone who doesn't have 70 quid straight off the bat to throw at something, you could play a bunch of games and try a bunch of games and be like, actually, you get not the full PS Plus Premium, for example. You pay 30 quid, whatever it is, a month, and you get access to a bunch of free games, a back catalogue of games. It's a nice way of having loads of different things to play. Especially, I think it's especially good if you play a lot and you're looking for more things to play. For someone like me, we don't have the full premium version. A, because it's quite pricey, but B, because I wish I had more time to play games, but I don't. And so it makes more sense for me to buy individual games when I want to play them, as opposed to subscribing to something. But it's great because it means it works for different people's style of gaming. I think it's great. And I think actually the stuff you get on Game Pass is absolutely insane. And the stuff you can get on Epic is really good as well. So it's it's such a great system. I would love to hear what you guys have found through subscribing to gaming.
Jamie, do you want to go first?
Oh, I mean, my love of Games Pass is well documented. It's a service I think is hashtag not sponsored. It's a service I think is absolutely fantastic. I've been signed up for it since day one, and it keeps getting better. They keep dropping more stuff. So $10.99 a month, and I have this huge library of games at my disposal, and it lets me. I've been able to play stuff that I wouldn't have picked up normally for two separate reasons. So one is games that I normally wouldn't have got a look in, that wouldn't have necessarily crossed my peripheral vision even. But there was one that I played a while back, which was Boyfriend Dungeon. Now, nothing called Boyfriend Dungeon would normally pop into my head. I was like, oh, I'm going to give that a go. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, it's another Hatterful Boyfriend, which broke me spiritually when I played it for a charity stream a long time back. And so, but I thought I'm going to give it a go. And I got absolutely addicted to this game. It's fantastic because I'm going around. It's like you have these little conversational bits where you meet people, and then it turns into a dungeon crawler with swords. But you're trying to have sex with the swords because they're actually people. And it's the most bizarre shit I've ever played, but it was so much fun and with really solid dungeon crawler mechanics. And the art style was adorable, and at one point I was trying to date a battle axe. Oh, this is great! I'm game. This is fantastic. So you get games like that, which are just not something that you would have looked at if you had to shell out money for it. And then the other side of it is you get games that stuff releases on there that is full release that I would absolutely play, but wouldn't necessarily right now have the money to drop on it. So I have a lot of games in my pile of shame, as we know, and a lot of games on the go. I'm still playing Fortnite at the moment. I'm playing Valorant. I've just started playing Overwatch 2. So there's lots of multiplayer stuff. And then Disney Dreamlight Valley dropped. Now I, at the moment, wouldn't really have been able to justify dropping the 20 odd quid that it is, because I wouldn't have thought I'd be playing enough of it. But it's Game Pass. It's come to Game Pass, so I thought, brilliant. I wanted to play that, and then I've become completely addicted to it, and I've nearly done everything in the game over the past week. So it's very addictive, very brilliant gameplay. But so you have the two sides. You've got the games that you would never have played and the games that you can't afford, and in between it, you've got this little $10.99 a month subscription that gives you access to everything. I cannot praise it highly enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jamie, I don't want to get your hopes up too much, but I have been trying to get the founder of Kitfox Games on the show as a guest. Kitfox Games are the developers of Boyfriend Dungeon. One of our previous episodes, I got to interview the composer of Boyfriend Dungeon, so check that out on the YouTubes, guys. That's a really good conversation. He did all of the music stuff from it. A really great composer and musician. But I'm trying to get the writer and the director and founder of Kitfox Games on the show, because that would be awesome. Watch this space. I'm trying. It may not happen, but I'm trying. But so my options that I've been dabbling into, I'm going to talk about two. I do like you, Jim. I like to sample a lot of different stuff just to see if anything is going to stick and hold my attention. There's two particular ones that just came out recently that I could gush about easily for the next kind of half an hour, but I promise I won't do that. But the first one is a game called Proteus. I think it is the 1.0 version. It's on PC as well. It's listed as game preview, but I think it's the 1.0 release of it. And this is a first-person shooter that is so friggin' glorious. Think Doom, OG Doom, but with the gameplay of the like Doom Eternal, but it has the most gorgeous pixel art, and it is ultra violent, and it has the rock soundtrack as well. And it is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal because it is so tight, it is so fast-paced, just like OG Doom. But weirdly, it feels modern, but it looks retro with the most gorgeous pixel art. And it's got this feel to it, which is just my generation of 90s FPS shooters, but feels like current. And I love it. I haven't been able to put it down. It is so kind of arcadey, pick up and play. You blast through the different levels, just like OG Doom was, where you got to find like the yellow key or the red key, and you get to the exit as kind of like as fast as possible. And it is so violent as well. I have never seen pixelated geysers of blood like this in a video game before. It is amazing. And when you're firing the weapons, and the weapons are a whole other topic I could talk about, the weapons and the shotgun in particular feels so goddamn good. And when you're firing like the machine guns or the handgun, and handgun, ironically, it's usually the weapon that you first ditch as soon as you get the shotgun. The pistol is really, really good. And when you're firing, there's this like screen shake as you're firing, just a little bit of a screen shake. And it gives it this extra kind of like visceral intensity to everything that's going on, because it's so fast paced. And then you're getting this little bit of like shudder to the screen. And I just imagine my character of getting to the end of the level, just like dripping in blood, like covered in blood. There's not a single inch of him. I like it to the blood rave at the beginning of Blade. It's nice. It's like that, of just like geysers and fountains of blood everywhere, and it is just so tightly crafted. Highly recommend checking it out, because it's such a killer game. Literally,
I'm so in. I'm so in. That sounds amazing.
And it's got that rock soundtrack as well, which is just like, oh my god, where has this been and where did this come from? So check that out. And the next game I'm going to talk about, this, Sarah, this is more for you, I think. You would really dig this one, because you're a Soulsborne fan, just like myself. There's a game called Moonscars, which is on Game Pass. I believe it's on PlayStation as well, but it's free on Game Pass, so you can check it out. This is how to put it? It is a Souls-like. It's 2D pixel art again, gorgeous pixel art, super fluid and kind of that Dead Cells kind of vibe, but it's very much a kind of Dark Souls-like. And I think you play a kind of like vampire-like character. He's got like the shock white long like metal hair with like, this kind of.
Why do you think I would like it? I have no idea.
Funnily enough. And he wears this crimson kind of suit, and there's abilities in it that are all about like the lunar eclipses and things like that, and like the consumption of, I think it's blood. And I've only played a little bit of it, so I'm probably getting these facts totally wrong, but it's something to do with like revival and consumption of blood, and using that as for powers and regeneration and stuff. And it looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It's probably closer to a game called Death's Gambit, if you've heard of that. Death's Gambit is another absolutely stunning Souls-like 2D pixel art. And at the moment, because I'm so little into Moonscars, I would say Death's Gambit is way like another level above the artistry of pixel art. And you have a horse in Death's Gambit, which is amazing. So little freebie there, guys. Check out Death's Gambit, because that's awesome. But Moonscars is just super interesting. Again, ultra hard, very much in the Souls-like vein, but it's just one of those things you can pick up and play, hack and slash a bit, and get killed, get revived, and jump back in and unlock the kind of the Metroidvania-like level design. So cool. So that's my 2 picks for our maiden subscribed to gaming little segment within a show.
I love that so much. That's very cool. Moonscars.
There's so much good stuff because, you know, I was playing Grounded as well, which is obviously on Game Pass, and that was in the game preview for such a long time, and that got its proper 1.0 release just last week. And if you're an 80s kid at all that knows the masterpiece of Rick Moranis and the Honey I Shrunk the Kids games.
Oh yeah,
this is essential gaming. It's from Obsidian, who did the Outer Worlds and Fallout New Vegas, those games. And again, they have done something which is really hard to do, and it's capture the scale of being a minute little person, gets shrunk down, and you're in the garden. And you have these skyscraper shards blades of grass that are coming over, and there's ants crawling around that are benign to you. As long as you don't fuck with them, then they won't fuck with you. But then there's spiders, and fucking hell, spiders when they're the size of a house coming at you. Jesus. Oh my God. But highly worth checking. So I guess I've got 3 to gush about, but I've played very little of Grounded, whereas I've played loads of Proteus and a bit of Moonscars. But Grounded excites me because it is the Honey I Shrunk the Kid fantasy I've always had since I first saw that film in the 80s. Was it 80s or maybe early 90s? I think it was late 80s.
Late 80s, I feel.
Yeah, I think it is. And it's a co-op game as well. It's you can build not a fortress, what do you call it, a settlement and things like that to survive. It's very much a survival game, but it's just the scale of being this tiny, minute little person in your back garden, but it feels so alien. It feels like an alien planet because you're getting it from a different perspective, and they've nailed it. They've absolutely nailed it.
Cool.
Grounded is something very special. I played a fair bit of that in the pre-release, and then jumped in the other night with my son for sort of a couple hours of just trying it out, and got mercilessly gagged by lawn mites and spiderlings, which was hilarious. Fell out of a tree, just insane. But one of the things I loved with it is the fact that we climbed the tree. And managed to get quite high in the tree, and then there's a little platform, and looked out across the garden, and you can see the whole garden then, and you see the house and everything, because you've got that perspective from afar. Everything looks like just a normal backyard, but you can go and get lost in that. That's your map, that's your terrain. That's a brilliant game.
Yeah,
thoroughly impressed with Grounded.
I know. We need to try and get a co-op session going, because that would be so much fun. I think, like, so much fun.
Absolutely.
And Sarah, you're gonna need to get access to a PC or something so we can all game together on.
I have a PC. It's just that it sits in the living room, so I have to take over the entire living room when I want to game on it.
That's fine.
Worth it.
Yeah. I'll tell the other half, out you go, find something else to do.
Or get your other half to buy you a Valve Steam Deck so you can just sit on the sofa and get your PC Game Pass there.
That's a great idea. I'm going to tell him that.
I think so. That's what love is. Buying your other half's a Steam Deck.
That is what love is, damn it.
Tell him live on the show so we can hear him shout "no" in the background.
He's conveniently not here.
I know. So, guys, last topic. This is kind of a sad one, but not entirely unexpected, probably, and it is the loss of Google Stadia. So on last week's show, if you tune in for that, we talked at length, and Jamie ranted at length about cloud gaming and how Logitech were getting into the handheld cloud gaming space. And now we have the announcement that Google is officially pulling out of the cloud gaming space, and Stadia is, as that classic Monty Python sketch once said, this parrot is no longer living. It is dead. So Stadia is dead, everybody. Stadia is dead. Wow. I'm kind of shocked, but Google's reputation and history of yoinking support for innovative projects that they've been looking at is kind of par for the course, really. But it's unfortunate to see that Stadia is, they're pulling the plug. And I definitely have thoughts on why this happened, but I want to pass it to Sarah first of all and get your thoughts.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Considering Xbox is pushing so hard with cloud gaming at the moment. It feels like maybe it wasn't so much of a surprise. Like it felt like they were deprioritizing it. I don't know, about a year ago or something like that. I think what really sucks is they had like 2 dedicated teams, like massive teams, and I can't remember where, Toronto and somewhere else. Essentially, hundreds of people now don't have jobs, which is, I mean, well, perhaps they'll have jobs up until January when it all closes down, but that's horrific. And I really hope that there's a place for them to go and that, they don't struggle too much with finding something else to do. Maybe in another cloud gaming place like Xbox, maybe. You guys got some jobs for these guys?
Logitech might be hiring.
They might be hiring, yeah.
Yeah, it is sad. But I mean, has it been any indication other than Google just deciding, no, we're not going to do this anymore, or no, this isn't important enough to us? Like, has there been any dialogue about why? Because I feel like in my kind of trying to sort of vaguely scour the internet, it was just various statements of, this is happening, sorry. And there wasn't such much more than that. So I don't know. Do you guys know if there's been any actual indication as to why?
Not officially or any kind of statements. I can only speculate that just the numbers aren't there and they haven't really been growing. And I personally, whether this is accurate or not, I think it's down to the business model. The business model was just terrible. The tech was there. Like the infrastructure that they'd built and everything was actually sound and really, really good. But it's a monthly subscription to, and then you have to also buy the games, and the games are like full price games from the Google store.
Oh.
And that is just awful. So you have to pay, I think it was either between maybe £10 to £15 per month, and that just basically gives you access to their cloud platform. Essentially, if you boil it down, that's all it gives you access to. There are free games or access to some free games, but they're not the games that you want to play. They're not the new games. They're not like the day ones that you get on something like Game Pass. Not sponsored, but it's even worse when you say, okay, I'm subscribing to a cloud service, and then I have to pay £50, £60 to then play Cyberpunk, or to then play Red Dead 2, or to then play the latest Hitman game, or I don't even know if Call of Duty's on the cloud actually, if it's a Call of Duty game there, or whatever game it is. You then have to drop that kind of money, and it's a digital game, but it's not like a physical thing. You're just giving Google money for virtual access to a cloud platform. It's not even something you can't even download them and run them locally or anything like that. It's even worse than digital purchases, because it's a cloud purchase, which is even more like vaporware. I mean,
so what did they expect then? I mean, well,
I know.
I mean, yeah, it's a bit cringe.
I have friends that really, really enjoyed it, and I think it comes down to the infrastructure of, I can just load up a web browser, I can get the dongle on my TV or whatever, and then just instantly start playing one of these big games with no loading, no real footprint to my living room, and the experience is good enough to justify the fact that it's a cloud. I mean, we talked about it's never going to be as good as running it natively, and that's very true. When I've tried to run it in a browser on my Mac previously, I tried to run Destiny, I tried to run Red Dead 2, and it was for my setup, and I've got a decent connection for internet, I was getting a really bad experience. But other people were getting a really good experience. So again, it comes back to the infrastructure is still probably not there. And they were doubling down on charging as well, which is kind of even worse. It's not like Game Pass where you're paying £10 a month for all of your Xbox ecosystem that you can get it on PC, you can get it on your console, you can get it on your phone. Cloud gaming is bundled into that. It's not paying the £10 a month to just give you access to a cloud service and then you got to go buy £60 to play Gears of War on the cloud. It's not like that. I think they just severely fucked up the business strategy, which is a real shame, because from what you said, Sarah, like all the jobs that are now have to either get transitioned to another department or another part of Google, which is huge. Maybe they can redistribute the workforce, or they're just going to shutter the division down entirely and then lay all these people off, which is the absolute worst.
And they're doing a whole bunch of refunds as well, right, on the hardware. So it seems like
it's a huge loss. That must be a huge loss. Yeah. Jamie, over to you.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how badly it must have gone for them, the fact that they are turning around and saying, right, we're just going to give everyone their money back on hardware and software. Like software purchases through it and everything. Just take it. We fucked up, just take it. It's it never really... I don't think Stadia ever really took off the way they wanted it to from the start. Like it just didn't. There was a buzz around it at the start, and then it just sort of died a quiet death over a period of months. Like you say, the fact that you're paying for access to the service for the privilege of giving them money for games that you can play on their service is definitely not the right business model to take. And you're always going to suffer with cloud. We said it last week. You're always going to suffer from the fact that if you don't have a decent internet connection, it's not going to be of any use to you. And that's not even, you can have a great connection at home, but if you're buying this service because you travel a lot, and then you go to hotels and stuff, and you think, I can play some games in my downtime, but the hotel has crappy Wi-Fi, then you're not going to get the use out of it. So it's that to consider. Because I don't think, for the most part, I don't think cloud gaming is something that people are buying so they can game at home. You will. Some people are, obviously, because it's people who don't want to spend out for an expensive PC rig and then they can get. But you've also got, it's people, or maybe it's an even split. It's people who are traveling and stuff and want to continue gaming while they're out and about. It's like, this way I can game at home and continue while I'm out and about. I think if you are putting enough hours into it at home, the chances are you're probably going to pick up either a console or a PC. If you're splitting your time, this might be something you want to try and do. And again, just the infrastructure does not exist consistently for it to be worth it. And that's where Logitech are going to struggle, and that's where Xbox, it's not always going to be viable, but because theirs is part of their existing services you're paying for anyway, it's just a nice bonus. And then if you have got a good connection, you can connect. So, I'm not really surprised to see Stadia go under. They've been, I think it was start of last year that they closed down their first party development. And then it just sort of, just piece by piece chipped away. So it's not really a shocker. It's very, obviously, great shame for the people who work there, but it's not exactly come out of left field, this one. I think it was on the cards.
It's a huge shame, but not that much of a surprise, unfortunately. I mean, the announcement was a surprise, but when you start to think about it, it's like, oh well, yeah, it makes total sense as to why it's being abandoned, unfortunately. But anyway, never mind. So is that us? Is that all of our topics covered for today? I think it is. Oh my goodness. So we have had some technical issues today, friends. So it may end up being a significantly shorter episode than our normal 90-minute episodes that we typically do.
I'm so sorry. It's all
my
Sarah's
fault. I'm not kidding. It happens.
Send me abuse on Twitter.
We just got to roll with it. It's absolutely fine. So anyway, this has been episode 80 of the Weekend Catch-Up Club podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, for dropping a little like and a little review on the various platforms that you are tuning in on. It's always hugely appreciated. But that's it from us. Take care, happy gaming, and we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.